Ahead on NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman.
On this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman, easy to make beef recipes with NCBA chef Shenoa French.
And now a special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman with host Kevin Oxner.
Hello and welcome to this week's special edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. I'm Kevin Oxner. Thanks for joining us. This week we're cooking up some of our favorite dishes with, you guessed it, beef. NCBA chef Shenoa French shows us how to keep beef in the center of the plate with some easy recipes. After a busy day at work, it's always good to come home to a hot meal. And with just a few minutes of preparation in the morning, you can have just that. Shenoa French of the Culinary Innovation Center at NCBA is with us to talk to us about the Lazy Day beef and vegetable soup. What do you have going here?
Yeah, so what we're going to do today is we're going to use a meal it's a crock pot recipe.
Okay.
And the best thing that you can do is you set it up in the morning. We call it a dump recipe. So you open cans, kind of dump them all in there, put a lid on them, and you're out the door. Come home, you do a quick couple additions, as we call it, our finishing steps, and then you have dinner on the table. Most people can translate any stew recipe or soup that you would do on the stove can be also done in a crock pot.
Perfect.
It just changes some of the timings. So we're going to start with about 2.5 pounds of stew meat. And if you want to cut stew meat yourself, you can. And right now you can go into the meat case in any grocery store and they have stew meat for you.
You bet.
So it's a quick, easy 2.5 pounds into
just
the crock pot.
Dump.
Yeah, so this will be our first one.
Okay.
That goes in. There's kind of the two sides of the house as we talk about whether you should always brown meat before you add them to the crock pot. You can. It will add some other flavor. There's a process that goes through called a Maillard reaction and some browning effect that will give you more beef flavor. If you're using chuck stew meat, you have more beef flavor in chuck than if you're using a round or something further down the animal. So if you're going to use a chuck stew meat, it's not as important, but if you're using something else, you can brown it before it would go in. Just add another step.
That's helpful to know.
So yeah, 2.5 pounds of stew meat in. We're going to go ahead and add 2 cans of low sodium. The low sodium is important of beef broth to go add in here for your moisture.
Okay, so not too much salt.
Nope, not too much salt. And the moisture in there helps with the cooking process. We're doing what's called braising. And so that's that moist heat cooking process that makes the beef tender.
Okay.
So water, we're also going to add 1 more cup of water, which will give us just a little bit more liquid. To make sure that it breaks down.
That way you're not, you have all day for that to go and you don't have to worry about it even if you're not outside or whatever.
Absolutely, yeah. So that, and then we're going to do a can of chickpeas. Drain them, obviously, before they go in. If you don't like chickpeas, you can do kidney beans, black beans. You can choose a can of beans of your choice.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan.
Yeah, make sure they're drained.
Okay.
Rinsed and drained usually.
Very good.
So that goes in.
And what, some tomatoes?
Yes, this is another can of no salt added. As you add that beef broth, that'll kind of pull in some salt. So no salt added stewed tomatoes. All right. You don't need to drain these because we, again, want that moisture.
Okay.
So that goes in. Our seasoning, we're going to do a teaspoon of dried Italian seasoning and then a little bit of salt and pepper.
It's a little Italian flavor.
Yeah, so
then do we need these vegetables? Or?
Not yet.
Not yet. Oh,
so this all gets mixed together. Go ahead and give it a stir once so you can incorporate as you see the vegetables or the herbs are going to float on top. Give them a stir through and then go ahead and all you need to do is put the lid on and walk away. If you have
low or
that depends. If you want it on low, that means about 8 hours.
Okay.
If you want it on high, it's about 6. So it kind of depends on how much time you have for the day or what you're doing.
Very good.
So this will cook all day long. No stirring required. When you get home, then it's called the finishing steps that we talked about earlier.
Okay.
So your beef will be tender, and that's the most important thing to check when you get home is give it a stir and go ahead and check, make sure your beef's tender in there with the fork. And then this is going to be 2 cups of frozen vegetables. So you can do a mixed blend. Here we've got, there's a little bit of green beans and peas and carrots and corn.
You bet.
So pick what you like, about 2 cups. That goes directly in here.
Okay.
So that all gets mixed into it as well.
Yep.
And then the next step, this is kind of where you'll make a decision factor for you.
Okay.
If you have an extra hour, you would go ahead and add in, this is a cup of small pasta that's not cooked. So if you have an hour, and this is how the recipe lists it out, you would go ahead and dump this in, put the lid back on them, and then let it cook for an hour. And so what the other moisture in there is doing is cooking this pasta.
Gotcha.
If you don't want to wait an hour and your beef is tender when you get home, you're probably going to need, maybe 15, 20 minutes for those vegetables. But you could boil this on the stovetop just in regular salted water. Yeah, and then dump them all together.
Dump it in, gotcha.
Yeah, so it kind of depends. This is where it gives you your variation at night when you get home.
Sure.
So if you wanted to do this would get dumped in there. Again, lid goes on. You can finish chores of the house or whatever you need to do, set the table. And then the last bit of it, as you serve it, you're just going to go ahead and sprinkle just a little bit of Romano or Parmesan cheese on top.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. We've part it with a nice whole grain roll, and you have dinner.
You're ready to go. Well, what a great example of how with just a little prior preparation, you can still have a great and an economical meal for the entire family when you get home.
Absolutely. It's our version of the microwave meal because it takes about the same amount of time when you get home.
Outstanding. For more time-saving recipes and plenty of others, head to our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. As we head into the spring and summer months, why not add some fresh flavors to your nightly meal? Chef Shenoa French of the Beef Culinary Innovation Center at NCBA is with us to talk to us about a beef and asparagus pasta toss.
Absolutely.
Tell us what you have here.
Well, this is one of our quick weeknight meals, and as most people think about ground beef, they think of tacos, spaghetti sauce, something that they just throw together, and we want to give them another option. This is also one of those meals that you can have on the table for a family of 4 in less than 30 minutes.
Perfect.
So we're going to start with the pasta. You're going to boil about 6 cups of water. You need enough. We're going to use 3 cups of uncooked pasta, bow tie variety. This is a whole wheat one, and you can use whichever one you want.
Sure.
When we talk about boiling pasta, we want to make sure that we add enough salt to the water.
Really?
The kind of the trick or the tip that we were given through culinary school is make it taste like the ocean.
Really?
If you don't add salt to the water, it pulls the salt out of the pasta and puts it into the water because they like that equilibrium, and then you'll have a less flavorful pasta.
So salt your water, boil the pasta.
Yeah. So, and what we're doing with this, we kind of do a 2-for-1 step. So you'll throw your pasta in, cook for about 10 minutes, and then the last 3 to 4 minutes that your pasta would be cooking, you throw your 1-inch pieces of asparagus.
Right with the pasta.
Right with the pasta. So you cut them up and have everything ready. This recipe is really important to get all your things together because it goes together really quickly. So 1-inch pieces of asparagus, tossed in the last 3 to 4 minutes. You drain them all together, and then just rinse them in cold water. So that way it kind of stops. We call it blanching and shocking your vegetables. We'll keep your nice green color as we go through this.
Very good.
So get these together and kind of put them aside.
So it's looking good so far. I love asparagus.
All right, then we have our ground beef, just a pound of ground beef. And go ahead and brown it on the stove. You can brown that on the stove while your pasta is boiling. Take it out of the pan, pour off the drippings. We recommend using 90% lean and above. So you won't have a lot, but go ahead and put that aside on the bowl. And now we're ready to get cooking. So hot skillet, and again, I like to use a larger skillet and toss everything into one stove instead of having to toss things back into the bowl. So I use a little bit larger one. If you don't have one at home, you can kind of go the other way. We're going to start with a little bit of olive oil. So about 3 tablespoons of olive oil. Go ahead and put this in there. If you don't want to use olive oil, you don't have to. Got your heat on kind of low, but what we're going to want to do is we've got some shallots, and this is about 1/4 cup of shallots, minced. If you can't find shallots, you can use onions. They're all kind of in the same family. These are just a little stronger.
Very good.
So go ahead and
some flavor to that pasta.
Toss these in there. You want to make sure your oil is a little warm before you start adding stuff in there. As you can hear, it's starting to sizzle. The vegetables will absorb less oil if it's hot.
I see.
So there's your shallots. The next thing we're going to add is 2 to 3 cloves of minced garlic.
Love garlic.
More if you like it, less if you don't. So that goes in.
I'm smelling already. It smells great.
And then to top that off, we're going to do just a little bit of salt and pepper.
All right. And how long are you going to cook this then?
You know, this is quick, so it kind of depends on how hot your pan is. You're going to want to, as we talk about either sweating or kind of reducing down those, you want to bring out the flavor by the heat. And you almost want to make your shallots that translucent as you can start to smell them. You don't want to cook them too long because otherwise you'll burn the garlic. And also olive oil has a lower smoke point than most oils, so you don't want them too hot.
Gotcha.
So that's why you kind of keep it on lower heat.
It smells great, Shenoa.
Yeah, you'll give them a couple stirs, let them get nice and translucent, and then as this happens, we're going to add our ground beef. We're going to add that back in. So this will go back into the pan, and it'll help you. It's going to start heating back up.
Gotcha.
You want to make sure this has probably only been out of the pan for maybe 10 minutes as you work through.
Still warm.
Still warm. So you kind of want to mix all your garlic and the shallots through that.
Yeah.
Get a little bit of the olive oil and the salt and pepper all incorporated.
It smells great. Yeah, that's outstanding.
So once you're there, and I talked about, we're going to do all of this will go into here.
In the same, wow.
Yeah, if your pan's not big enough at home, then you can go the other way.
That's great.
So what I'll do is I'll slowly slide all these guys in there.
Yeah.
And the olive oil is kind of working as your sauce that's in there.
Yep.
You can throw that right down there. So, and this comes the toss part.
Gotcha.
So you can either do it in a big bowl or
That's right.
Or
I
do
want
it
to see
in
you
skillet.
kind of tossing it on the skillet, maybe.
I don't know if the skillet's quite big enough. I'm going to end up with pasta tossed all over the counter, Kevin.
That's
so you'll
great.
toss this all together, and you can either serve it family style directly out of the skillet, or you could portion it up.
Looks great.
Yeah, as you top off just a little bit of Parmesan cheese. So you'll sprinkle just right on the top. That tops off every pasta dish,
Absolutely.
right?
Or a lot of Parmesan cheese.
And here's a single portion with a nice
great.
piece of bread.
I've got to try this. I have to tell you that I love asparagus, and you're doing all the things right here.
Yeah, and the perfect part, if you don't like bow tie pasta or you can't find it, you can use wagon wheel or some of the spiral. Just make sure that they're smaller so they'll fit on your fork easier. So we recommend not using full-on spaghetti with it.
That's great, though. What a quick and easy dish, and a healthy one at that.
Yep, and it reheats perfectly for lunch the next day if you need it to.
Thanks for a great, unique idea. For this recipe and others featuring great tasting beef, head to our website at cattlemantocattleman.org.
Well, I think a rancher has to be a steward of the land. There's nobody else that can take care of land better than a rancher. When we switched over to the Purina products, it was a step in the right direction.
The difference we see in the cattle is the consistency of their nutrition.
The cattle hold their condition a lot better throughout the whole year.
It does make a difference that we can see, day in and day out.
Take the 60-day challenge and save up to $55 on Purina feed. Sign up at purinadifference.com.
It's the official monthly publication of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. The National Cattleman is produced exclusively for NCBA members and includes coverage of the news and events affecting our industry. From Capitol Hill to the far side of cattle country, the National Cattleman provides information NCBA members need. Every issue includes market analysis, feature stories, and practical management tips. Start receiving your copy of The National Cattleman. Call 866-USA-BEEF or go online to beefusa.org and join today.
These days, more cattlemen choose Draxxin to fight BRD than any other brand. Here's why.
It works. We have fewer repulls, and the ones that we do repull respond, and we have fewer chronics in the end.
To retreat anything it's a lot more expensive than using Draxxin as a first time.
And the evidence backs up what most cattlemen already know. Draxxin cuts retreats by 50%. So talk to your veterinarian and check the online calculator at Draxxin.com. You'll see why Draxxin should be your first choice to fight BRD.
Basically what it's allowed us to do with our operation is run more cattle through in a given period of time. It's just really been a good product to use.
Do not use in female dairy cattle 20 months of age or older. Do not use in calves to be processed for veal. Draxxin has a pre-slaughter withdrawal time of 18 days. Please visit Draxxin.com or call 1-888-DRAXXIN for more information.
Hi there, I'm Joey.
And I'm Rory, and welcome to our farm outside Nashville, Tennessee. When we go to work, whether it's on tour or here at home, we wear the West.
That's right. Whether it's that perfect snap shirt or that perfect pair of boots. When you wear Roper, you wear the West.
Learn more about us, Joey and Rory, and about Roper Western Wear at eroper.com.
Telling the truth and being real and feeding my family a home-cooked meal. that's important to me. That's important to me. And planting the garden and watching it grow.
Beer, corned beef, and four-leaf clover t-shirts all have one thing in common: St. Patrick's Day. The next day, however, the beer is usually all used up and the t-shirts get returned, but there's still leftover corned beef in the fridge. Shenoa French from the Beef Culinary Innovation Center is here today to talk to us about what we can do with that leftover corned beef and what I hear is called the rustic corned beef and potato bake.
Absolutely.
Tell us about it.
Yes. So as you were saying, this recipe is actually designed as part of our cook once, dine twice.
Oh.
So it's ensuring or guaranteeing that you'll have leftovers to be able to do something with the next day or in a couple days.
Fantastic.
If you make this recipe, you'll have some leftover corned beef.
Sure.
And if you don't want to make the full recipe and you can just buy thick cut deli roast beef.
Okay.
Another part of this recipe is a horseradish.
Ah.
And that's kind of an important part, so we'll talk through that in a bit.
Okay.
And then the other part is going to be the potato bake part.
Oh, okay.
So if you had leftover, you would have some of the red potatoes here.
Sure.
But if you didn't do the whole recipe, you can use frozen potatoes.
Oh,
and
in
I'll
its
talk about
place.
that here
And
in a
some
minute.
cheese.
And some cheese, yeah.
Fantastic.
Everybody needs cheese,
You
right?
gotta have cheese.
So what we're going to start with here is it calls for a tablespoon of butter divided.
Okay. All right.
So we're going to put a little bit of this butter in this pan.
Non-stick skillet of sorts?
Yeah, and we're really using the butter to go ahead and sweat out some of the onions
Gotcha.
and some of the thyme.
Okay.
So I'm going to throw half a cup of white onions in here.
Good.
If you want yellow, you can use whichever you prefer.
Very good.
Those just need to, they call it translucent, so they'll pretty much become clear.
Yep.
The other thing we're going to throw in here is 2 teaspoons of thyme.
Ah.
And I think I've showed this guys before, but remember the most important thing when you're doing thyme is you go backwards. And make sure it's fresh and everything will just peel right off.
One of the things I've learned, I impress my wife with that all the time. It's very impressive.
And if they stay on there, that means they're not ready, so just don't use them. So we'll throw that down
We
here.
will use them no time before their time.
Absolutely. So throw this in here.
All right. And we're just going to saute that a little bit.
Yeah, so you give it a couple minutes.
All right.
So throwing onions all over the place here. Let that get nice and translucent.
Sure.
Called kind of sweating your onions out.
Okay.
Brings a little flavor to them.
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do is we're going to move on and talk about this horseradish.
Yeah, what is that?
sauce. So this is part of the original recipe, and this is hot horseradish, butter, and green onions.
Really?
Yeah, so this is, they call for 2 tablespoons reserved from the original recipe.
Okay.
Now, if you didn't make the original recipe, what you can do is use 2 tablespoons of creamy horseradish and then add like a half of a green onion or about a tablespoon of sliced green onions.
Get you the same effect.
It'll give you the same flavor that way if you don't want to do the whole thing.
Wow.
So what I'm going to do is add, this is almost a pound, it's 12 ounces
All right.
of corned beef. And like I said, you can use the leftover from the night before.
But you want to cut it in small chunks like that?
Yeah, kind of just, we call this rough chop. So the pieces, if you're going to buy it from the deli, make sure you get a thick cut from there and make sure they don't do too thin for sandwiches.
Okay.
Otherwise, it kind of just disappears in there. So almost a pound, about 12 ounces. We're going to add this to here.
All right.
This kind of gives you some of your
Mix
flavor.
it all together. Yeah, it does sound good. Yeah. Love
So-
horseradish.
And you can do as spicy or as mild as you want.
Very good.
Now that our onions are kind of working, what we're going to do is all of this is going to go into one big pan.
Ah, very good. All right.
So this kind of starts your reheating process, and
Gotcha.
it's make sure that you, when you're reheating meats and deli meats and that kind of stuff, that you want to take them to at least 165. And part of that, when we bake them, we'll do
Same
that,
thing.
but that's that safe reheat temperature for deli meats and leftover
So about
dishes.
how much time would you expect this will likely take? then
This
on
one
the
will bake,
stovetop?
well, on the stovetop, you're not trying to get everything cooked, you just want to get everything incorporated.
Sure, okay.
So you're not going to be on the stove for more than 10 minutes, probably.
Okay, good.
So once this gets all mixed together, get our pieces back in there. What we're going to do is we're going to grab our baking dish, and you'll use a little bit of butter on the bottom here, and so it doesn't stick.
Okay.
And like I said, if you're using the leftover potatoes, they would have been whole.
Sure.
Just cut them in halves and then in quarters, so basically 8 wedges per potato. They get laid down, and then they show them in the picture that you can put them up and do a real cute fan around the edges too.
We won't worry about that.
Whatever you want to do. And then you take half of your Swiss cheese. You use a cup of Swiss cheese. Half of it goes down on the bottom, and so that gets laid down on the pan. Like I said, this side is frozen potatoes if you don't have the other ones from the grocery store.
Very good.
What we're going to do is we're going to take all of this and kind of mix it.
Oh, you're going to put it right on top. So
right on top.
It is kind of a casserole sort of
they call it that bake that we were.
Interesting. Huh, that's very different than anything I've seen with corned beef before.
Yeah, so this all gets in here, and the most important thing is that you pack it down.
Why is that?
This will make sure that it's all kind of firm together. Your juices will drop through it, and it also helps with the heating.
I see.
Make sure that it heats evenly.
Gotcha.
So we're going to push everything down.
And put some more cheese on it,
Yeah, you're trying to heat up those potatoes.
Gotcha.
Because if you don't pack it down, the heat won't transfer all the way down through them. Okay. And then, like you said, a little bit more cheese.
Always good.
Kind of sprinkle them evenly around the top.
Yeah.
And then what we're going to do is take a piece of foil.
Let me grab that for you. I can do that part of it.
And just it goes on tight. I can tell you a little trick. If you Pam the top of your foil, your cheese won't stick to it.
Really?
Yeah. So that's a nice little.
I'm going to be a hero at home.
Get this good and tight so that kind of the potatoes are able to steam down there.
Okay.
And then it goes into a 350-degree oven, and it bakes. If you're using frozen potatoes, you need to bake it for 35 minutes. And if you're using room temperature, the other cooked potatoes, it's like 25.
Gotcha.
So you'll throw it in the oven, bake it with the foil on. About 25 minutes, 35 minutes, depending on which type of potatoes you used. And then you take the foil off and give it another 5 to 10 minutes. You want it bubbly and golden brown on the top.
Wow, and this is what we have then.
Yeah, so we've put a nice portion of it here, and we talked about traditional St. Patrick's Day, there's always cabbage. And we didn't want to do just the big chunk of wedge cabbage or something like that. So we went ahead and roasted some Brussels sprouts. We put them in the oven right along with the bake. You can just throw it on the bottom shelf and bake them along there with you.
And let me just be clear to our audience, that is optional component. Brussels sprouts are optional.
Not
at least
in your
our
house for you, but it is optional for everybody else, yes.
Well, thank you so much. What a creative dish. Thank you for sharing that with us. For this recipe and others like it, head to our website at cattlemantocattleman.org. Visiting your local farmer's market during the warm summer months is a very relaxing experience. You can pick up a wide variety of fresh produce directly from the producer. And all of that can come together to create something we like to call farmer's market vegetable beef and brown rice salad. And Shenoa French is with us today. She comes to us from the Beef Culinary Innovation Center to tell us how all this comes together. Shenoa, thanks for coming back to the show.
Thanks for having me. We're going to start with a recipe today that's out of the Healthy Beef Cookbook.
Sure.
And that recipe, the Healthy Beef Cookbook, was designed to pull some great lean cuts and some vegetables together, and it has now been used as part of the BOLD study.
Well, tell us more about that. We've heard a lot about that at NCBA convention and so forth. Give us some perspective.
Well, from the culinary part of it, we say that the BOLD diet is the DASH diet, which is a diet that was used to lower sodium and hypertension in patients, and it's on beef. So we call it the DASH diet on beef, is what we're saying.
And BOLD stands for?
Beef in an optimum lean diet.
Fantastic.
So they found that you can use beef in your diet and have the same results without it. So you might as well eat it, right?
Something a lot of us have always known, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Well, what do we have? We're using a top round today, is that right?
We are. So this recipe calls for a pound of top round steak, about an inch thick. And what we're going to do is, top round needs to be marinated.
Sure.
So we're going to start with the marinade, and then we'll put it in the refrigerator, and it needs to be marinated overnight or at least 6 hours, and we'll kind of move through the recipe. This one starts with a little bit of honey.
Wow.
So we've got about 2 tablespoons of honey.
Yes.
And to that, we're going to add some fresh lemon juice.
All right.
And that lemon juice will help break down your honey just a little bit.
Gotcha.
So in there, then you're going to add some olive oil, which is another one of those good
marinating
healthy fats. Yeah. Some fresh garlic. Minced
now
garlic.
We're talking.
Yeah,
I love
absolutely.
garlic.
And then here I have some salt and pepper and a little bit of fresh thyme.
Oh.
And remember, if you use fresh thyme, you want to pull it backwards on the stems to get it off the leaves.
You've told us that
That's
before.
that trick that makes it real easy to come off. So I'm going to dump it all in there.
Fantastic. We'll move these
I'm going to mix this together. The reason I put it in this little dish is you need to pull 1/4 cup out, and that's going to be used for the marinade, and then the rest of it is the dressing for the next day.
Oh, I see.
So yeah, I'm going to pull it into one of these little measuring cups and get a total on it.
Yeah, that honey kind of
sticks in the bottom of there. Yeah.
Fantastic.
We'll get this out of the way. And it looks like we have just about a half cup. So I'm going to get rid of about half of this. We'll go into here.
Good.
And we'll pull.
The rest becomes a dressing.
The rest becomes a dressing. So what you'll do is throw your steak in.
Oh, yeah.
It's easiest to use a Ziploc.
Sure.
I'm going to pull these guys off real quick. Seal your air out.
Yeah. Zip it shut.
Yeah, and make sure you get a good toss.
I see.
And then if you think about it, you put it in there the night before, toss it the next morning before you leave for work.
Gotcha.
Gets a good...
But about 12 hours or so.
Yeah, at least overnight, so whatever works. So this would go in the refrigerator, as well as the rest of your marinade for tomorrow.
Very good.
So we're going to get these out of the way.
Yep.
And we're going to move on to the main components here of this dish.
Got some asparagus going.
Yeah, so asparagus and yellow zucchini or yellow squash. You can use, if you need to switch out your vegetables, like you said, if you visit your local farmer's market and they don't have asparagus, find something else. Just make sure you stick within the same family of vegetables, because if you get something with much more liquid, it'll change your consistency.
I see.
So a squash and about a cup of asparagus in here.
Gotcha.
You'll give them a nice heat, just brown them a little bit so they start to cook and kind of break down.
Yep.
To that, we're going to add 3 cups of brown rice.
I see.
You can either make it from scratch at home. You can buy the frozen kind.
Frozen kind is good.
Microwave kind, whatever works. Just make sure that it's hot, because otherwise it'll change how long your dish takes to cook.
Gotcha.
So 3 cups into here, and I'm going to mix it all into one big skillet. If you don't have a skillet that's large enough to mix everything into the skillet, you can cook your vegetables and then put everything into a mixing bowl.
I see.
I don't like dirtying extra dishes. So
that's
so also there's a cup of diced tomato. We have de-seeded these, so cut them in half and kind of pull all those wet, moist seeds out of them. Get rid of them. It makes things a little neater in here.
Gotcha.
That goes in.
Colorful.
Yes. A cup of garbanzo beans.
Garbanzo beans.
Yeah, so
Very
this
good.
is the stuff that starts to make hummus, if you're not familiar with those.
Sure.
These are canned, just drain them.
And some basil.
And some basil. Fresh cut basil, about a quarter a cup. Give that a nice toss in there.
Yeah.
And then leftover out of the refrigerator comes that dressing.
Fantastic.
So the dressing gets tossed in there.
Okay, gotcha. So you don't wait till the end of the. I mean, are you doing this right now?
Yeah. So this would you put your steak in the night before, and this would be the day you're ready to serve that.
Perfect.
So that leftover marinade came out of there.
All right.
Go ahead and give this a good toss.
That looks great. Look how colorful that is.
So now here comes the hero. What we've done with the beef.
Absolutely.
It's gone out of the refrigerator and onto a broiler pan.
Oh,
so I'm not sure how familiar. If you want to use this on the grill, you could do that too, because we are in the summertime.
Sure.
But the difference between broiling and grilling is basically just the location of your heating element. So when you're using a broiler, it's the very top 2 to 3 inches of your oven, and there's real hot heat coming down. Make sure you use a broiler pan, and the big trick with that is that there's a pan underneath. We line it with foil so it's easy cleanup, and then the steak goes right on top.
Looks good to me.
So we're going to go ahead and pull this off and do some slices.
Fantastic.
And you'll just slice this across the grain.
Yes. Look at that.
Nice, and a nice medium rare. As thick as you want. If you have smaller kids and that kind of stuff, and you want to cut it in half this way first,
just
so your pieces are
shorter,
you can do that. But go ahead and cut this whole steak all the way across, and then you're going to either fan it across, or what we've done here for individual portion sizes.
Doesn't that look great?
Is we've done the portion size of the rice and vegetable mix underneath, and then your 4 ounces of lean beef on the top. And what we've talked about is this is part of the bold diet and the My Plate, which have all kind of been put together. So this gives you your half of your plate of fruit and vegetables, a quarter of your grains, and then a quarter of your proteins, and then they top it off with your dairy. So this is a My Plate meal and part of the bold study all at once.
You've got it all covered.
Absolutely.
You don't have to sacrifice a great tasting dish to also be taking care of your health.
Absolutely.
Thanks so much for coming. This looks delicious.
Thanks.
To get recipes like this and more, head to our website at cattlemantocattleman.org.
Head to Denver, Colorado and join cattlemen from across the country for the 2012 Cattle Industry Summer Conference. This is your chance to meet with industry leadership and fellow cattlemen on current trends and initiatives while also making valuable contacts. Registered attendees will also have access to hot topics at the Issues Forums. Join us for the 2012 Cattle Industry Summer Conference, July 25th to the 28th in Denver, Colorado. Visit beefusa.org for more information.
Preventing cattle pink eye is as easy as 1, 2, 3. 1. Vaccinate your animals with Piligard Pink Eye TriView to provide pink eye fighting antibodies in the tears that bathe the eye. Broad spectrum protection that cross-reacts with 103 different strains of pink eye causing bacteria. 2. Stop the flies that spread pink eye bacteria throughout the herd. Apply double barrel VP ear tags and Ultra Boss Poron for up to 5 months of face fly and horn fly control. 3. Manage the environment to reduce damage to the animal's eye from seed heads, pollen, and UV light, irritants that increase the risk of pink eye infection. With the right tools, preventing pink eye is as easy as 1, 2, 3.
At Cabela's Corporate Outfitters, our business is outfitting your business with everything from customized clothing and equipment to great incentives like gift cards and hunting or fishing trips. We carry more than 150,000 products, all backed by Cabela's world-famous commitment to quality and service, along with volume-based pricing for any size business or budget. You trust Cabela's with your outdoor experiences, so rely on Cabela's Corporate Outfitters to build your brand. Visit us today at cabela's.com/B2B.
Ever wonder where the beef checkoff dollar goes and what it buys? The Federation of State Beef Councils is made up of the 45 qualified state beef councils that collect the $1 per head beef checkoff. Each council keeps control of 50 cents and sends 50 cents to the Cattlemen's Beef Board for use in national beef checkoff programs. Many states also choose to send a portion of their share to the Federation to expand national and international efforts. As a division of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, the Federation of State Beef Councils works to support an effective state and national partnership, helping to increase beef demand through research, promotion, and education. Because producers themselves direct these programs, your beef checkoff dollars are in good hands. Learn more about the Federation of State Beef Councils by visiting beefusa.org.
Ever think a John Deere utility tractor was in your future? Then the future is now. For a limited time, a versatile 5D or 5E can be yours at the biggest savings in memory. You'll get a $1,500 implement bonus plus 0% financing for 60 months. Own a large acreage, hobby farms and ranches. The 5D is the perfect fit. Or step up to a 5E for tougher chores. Either way, you save. But see your Deere dealer today. Offer ends July 31st.
Some say old number 7 got its name because it was better than the 6th version, or that number 7 was for the 7th wife. All we know is that Jack Daniels took that secret to the grave with him. But he did leave us some of his famous Tennessee whiskey. NCBA President Bill Donald takes us on a tour of the oldest registered distillery in the nation, in the dry town of Lynchburg, Tennessee.
Hi, I'm Bill Donald, President of the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, and today I'm touring the Jack Daniels Distillery in Lynchburg, Tennessee. Jack Daniels has been a good friend to me, and I hope he's been a good friend to you. We're going to see exactly how all the process works and just what it takes to get a bottle of Jack Daniels in your hands. Well, here we are inside the Visitor Center at the Jack Daniels Distillery. We're joined here by John Smith, who's going to give us our tour guide. John, what do you got for us today?
Morning.
Good morning.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet
Jack
you.
Daniels Distillery. We're going to have a good tour today. We're going to show you everything as far as concerning whiskey making, Tennessee whiskey, and let's get started on our tour.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. Well, here we are at the Rickyard. John, tell us what a rickyard is and what are we looking at here?
As I was growing up, I was always told a rick of wood is a 4x4 by 4 foot tall. Each one of those piles of wood is a rick of wood, hence the word rickyard. And they'll take 4 of those ricks of wood, pile them up underneath our EPA approved hoods. They'll take 140 proof Jack Daniel whiskey straight off the steel, spread that lumber down real good, that whiskey, light a match to it. And they'll let it burn towards a couple hours. Now towards the end of the burn, they'll start spraying down with water, keep turning into ash. Because ash won't do us a bit of good. We need charcoal to make our whiskey. Now we use 3 grains to make our whiskey. We use great egg yellow corn, which comes from western Kentucky, Alabama, and a little bit from Illinois and Tennessee. While we get our malted barley from Montana.
Hometown.
And Iowa, very good. And our rye comes from western Canada. Now the other ingredient we use is spring water. We had no sugars, no additives to our whiskey. Why folks around here call it a health drink.
Quite a process. How much grain will you use here in a day?
Right at 20,000 bushels of corn a day.
20,000 bushels of corn.
And all trucked in at night normally. Sure is.
That's a lot of grain. Make a lot of whiskey.
It does. Yep. Now this is step 4 distillation. After that mash has been cooked and then it's fermented, it's pumped up on top of the still where it's distilled. Now it'll be dropped down on big colander plates. Now as that mash sifts those plates, you've got steam rising from the bottom, steam in the mash beats in the middle, vapors rise to the top where it's cooled and turned into a liquid. At that time it's piped into copper tubing, goes down into a try box. Now that try box is what you'll see up here. You'll see clear, 140 proof white lightning Jack Daniel whiskey coming to that try box. Clear as water at that point. Now they call it a try box, that's where they try the whiskey.
Oh, okay.
All right.
So and then it gets its color when they filter it through the charcoal and they age it?
Gets its color out of the barrel.
Oh, okay, when they age it in the barrel.
In the barrel, yes. Now after that mash has been cooked and then fermented, it's pumped up on top of the still where it's distilled. Now that spent mash is pumped up on top of the hill where it's sold to cattle farmers. High in protein, good cattle feed. That's why the local folks around there say we marinate our steaks from the inside out because of that. Now we sell it wet and dry to area farmers and area co-ops for feed, cattle feed. High in protein, good cattle feed. Now we had a local artist out of Franklin, Tennessee sculpt this bronze statue of Jack. It took him about 35 years old. Now Jack was only 5'2". Now they added about 5 inches to the height of his statue to make him a little bit more statuesque looking. Now he's standing up here in area limestone rock up here with me. Now this will be your only chance during the tour where you can get a free shot at Jack on the rocks. If you don't get up there and hug up an old Jack and you got a camera, we'll be glad to take care of you.
All right, so here we are with some of the commemorative bottles.
Right, fresh off the tour here. This is some of our bottles we've had over the years, commemorative bottles. Now in Lynchburg, you can only buy commemorative bottles. You cannot buy, we don't have a liquor store in Lynchburg, we're a dry county, but we are able to sell commemorative bottles, collector bottles.
With contents?
With contents, yes. You just got to call it that. You can either look at it or drink it. We don't, as long as you buy it.
Can't drink it here.
Can't drink it here. You got to drink it in your house. That's right.
Well, John, thank you so much for the tour. I appreciate it. It's been so illuminating for me. I enjoyed it immensely and had a great tour. Take it back to you, Kevin.
Eating beef with breakfast is a nutritious and tasty way to start the day. But it isn't always the easiest thing to prepare when you first wake up in the morning. Shenoa French of the Beef Culinary Innovation Center is with us here today to tell us about a beef recipe that's both easy and tasty to prepare for either breakfast or brunch. Is that correct?
Absolutely. Thanks for having me. We're going to talk through a frittata. And a lot of people probably aren't familiar with a frittata.
Yeah, I'm one of those.
It's similar. It fits kind of in the omelet or quiche family. Okay. It's just crustless. So that kind of takes some of the fat component out of it. First thing we're going to talk through, I kind of started a little bit, so for the sake of time, but we've got a non-stick skillet.
All right.
And the most important thing when you're choosing your skillet is choose one that's oven proof. And so if you have a plastic handle or something like that,
it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, because it is going to go into the oven.
Okay.
So go ahead and preheat your oven to 350 so
Yep.
that gets hot while you do the rest of the stuff.
Okay.
I went ahead and started, the beginning of this recipe calls for 4 new potatoes.
Okay.
And you cut them into quarters or slices, thin enough so that they'll cook.
And again, you have how much zucchini and onion in there?
There's one, and I'll talk about that here in a minute. So cut these up, and you're going to start with them in the pan with water and a lid. Cook them for about 10 minutes. Take them out and hold them aside and drain your water off. And then what we did in here, we threw a pound of ground beef in here.
Yep.
a whole small zucchini sliced, and a half of a yellow onion.
Do we have to put the zucchini in?
You do have to add it. You could do, well, okay, I'll let you choose another vegetable, but you have to choose a vegetable. It could be a red bell pepper or something else. But what most important thing is you want to cook your beef, drain it if you need to. We used a 90% lean, so we're pretty good.
Sure.
Here, salt, season it with a little salt and pepper so that it's all done. And this is pretty much, if you wanted to put this in an omelet, that components is all completely done.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
So once that's all done, then we're going to go ahead and move to your eggs. So this is just 6 large eggs. And put them in here and you whisk them together.
No milk or anything?
No milk or anything, just 6 large eggs. So after you have that, you're going to take some fresh basil, and this gives it a real nice fresh aroma that you'll smell here in a minute. So about 3 tablespoons, and if you like more or less, add it as you will. I always put it in here and stir it a little bit so it gets evenly distributed in here. So I'm going to do a little of this.
Very good.
You can do it with a fork if you want to.
Sure.
And what you're going to do is also add a little bit of salt and pepper. And I'm going to add it in here so that we...
Even though we've already salt and peppered the beef?
The recipe calls you to do a little bit at the beginning to start it, and then a little bit at, when you add it to the egg mixture. It makes sure that everything's thoroughly incorporated in here.
Very good.
So here goes the fun part. Yeah, and a little bit of fresh basil. You're going to go ahead and just pour it over the top. And kind of like make sure that it gets all mixed in, because you want the egg, what it'll do when we put it in the oven is it will, the fat in there kind of fluffs and it'll grow on us. A third of a cup of Italian cheeses, a nice white cheese.
I like cheese, or a half a cup, whatever you prefer.
Or if you're doing it at Kevin's house, that's what you get. So now what I'm going to do is this is going to go ahead and go in the oven. And as we talk about the magic of TV.
Wow, look at that.
Here comes one.
A microwavable dish.
And this goes in. We'll get this stuff out of the way for us. If you want to go ahead and grab that plate.
Absolutely.
You can either, if you want to serve it as a whole family style, these things will slide directly out on a plate. Or we've cut them and we're just going to take a piece out of there for you.
Look at that.
So this, as we talk about it, it's a crustless. And it's got the eggs fluff up in there.
Wow.
And you've got ground beef and all your other vegetables. So
I've got to try this. About how many people will this serve, Shenoa?
This one will serve 4 to 6, depending on how big of a piece you want for breakfast, how many people are eating, and then we've paired it with some nice berries for antioxidants and some orange juice if you want it.
That's perfect. You know, I'll tell you what, I think of bacon and sausage and ham, but I'll be honest, we don't do a lot of hamburger or beef for breakfast. This is delicious.
Well, and it's that simple way as you think about using it. You can kind of take this to a little bit of a Mexican version if you want to do stewed tomatoes and chilies and a little different cheese too. So it's a great brunch option as Mother's Day and Easter comes around.
Thanks so much for coming again.
Thanks for having me.
For other great breakfast ideas that include beef, head to our website at cattlemantocattleman.org.
To stay up to date on beef industry news and the National Cattlemen's Beef Association, check out beefusa.org. You'll find news on both the Federation of State Beef Councils and the work of NCBA on Capitol Hill. Plus, link to NCBA programs like the blog, Beltway Beef, updates on the Cattle Industry Convention and NCBA Trade Show, and the latest from NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. Connect today at beefusa.org.
They're out there, lurking on your pasture, just waiting to infect your cattle as they graze. Cattle worms cost you money, but a Safeguard strategic deworming program allows you to deworm your cattle and lower worm burdens on your pasture, resulting in improved pregnancy rates and heavier calf weights. Plus, there's a Safeguard form for every operation. So start killing parasites where they lurk. Talk to your animal health provider today about a Safeguard strategic dewormer program. Safeguard. Think strategically. Act decisively.
Assuring beef quality begins with dedicated people such as Phoebe Bittler, a dairy producer, and Jim Warren, a cattle auction market owner. Both are winners of the Beef Checkoff-funded National Beef Quality Assurance Award, and both recognize the need for the entire industry to focus on beef quality.
We've tried to put our best foot forward and try to see that the product that we send out of this country is the most wholesome, safest, best product that anybody could have anywhere. And to be complimented for that effort is an amazing experience.
It's all important, and I think there's some really good protocols laid out in the Beef Quality Assurance Program that will help producers to do the best job that they can do.
Producers across the nation have embraced the BQA program because they're committed to producing the world's best beef. To find out how you can compete for the BQA National Awards, visit the website bqa.org.
Hi there, I'm Dr. Dan Thompson from Doc Talk. Join me next week as we discuss Johne's disease in cattle with Dr. Matt Meisner. We'll discuss things such as which animals are at risk, how they acquire the bacterium, and what causes it, how to diagnose it, and what is the most effective way to prevent it from getting in your herd. Dr. Meisner is an assistant clinical professor here at Kansas State University. So please join me on Doc Talk right here on RFD TV, and I'll see you down the road.
Seasons change, but year in, year out, year round, it's Crystalix season. With specific supplements for weaning stress in fall. Protein for pre-calving in winter. Calving in spring. And minerals and fly control in summer. For low cost per head per day supplements, every season is Crystalix season.
We know who made that hitch. We know who cut the steel, who milled the ball, and who welded the seams. We know who tested, measured, and checked. We even know who thought the whole thing up. We're B&W, and we know your hitch. Because we don't make them halfway around the world. We make them all right here. B&W. Trusted.
Theriogenologist. I was one and didn't even know it. A specialist in animal reproduction, an ovary observer, a diddler of the zygote, one who has devoted his life to preserving pregnancy, a cow plumber. Included in this broad field are embryo transplanters, infertility detectives, artificial inseminators, and others identified by their green fingernails and white socks. Those folks who practice this profession are an unusual group. They don't wear a tie to work. They approach their business like professional football players, knowing when the game is over, they're going to look a whole lot worse. But there are dangers, although most injuries are more damaging to one's self-esteem. Like Gary, a struggling newlywed who was doing artificial insemination to enhance his meager graduate student income. He arrived at the farm with only one plastic sleeve. It lasted for 5 cows. Gritting his teeth, he approached cow number 6 and palpated her bare-handed. Gruesome, perhaps, to the non-cow person, but an accepted alternative to the dedicated theriogenologist. As he began his treasure hunt in the final cow, he must have said something unprofessional because she kicked him on the inside of the thigh. He was elbow deep in the cow at the time, and she clamped down on his arm as he fell to the ground, writhing in pain. Driving home that evening, in stinking agony, he made a terrifying discovery. He had lost his untarnished, 2-month-old, 24-karat, 5-month payment plan, once-in-a-lifetime, extravagant, solid gold wedding ring inside the cow. Well, the next morning, he returned to the farm, armed with a metal detector, and was seen wandering through the field for days, going from patty to patty like a beachcomber high on propane fumes. Well, the bride was not happy. The mother-in-law was vindicated, however, since she had warned her daughter not to marry someone who makes a living that no one can pronounce. This is Baxter Black from in there.
I am an NCBA member.
I am an NCBA member. I'm an NCBA member because NCBA provides a uniform voice for all segments of the industry.
I am an NCBA member.
I'm an NCBA member because it's important that all cattle producers band together to get our message across to protect our livelihoods and make ranching sustainable for the next generation.
I am an NCBA member.
I am an NCBA member because especially in today's political climate, it is important that we have one unified voice from pasture to plate. and NCBA gives us that opportunity.
I am an NCBA member.
Join me today.
Grow more low-cost forage and improve grazing access by clearing out weeds and brush with these Dow AgroSciences herbicides. See your Dow AgroSciences representative or visit rangeandpasture.com.
Dust off those boots and come join us in Tampa, Florida for the 2013 Boots on the Bay Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show. This is your chance to network with industry leaders, participate in important cattle industry meetings, and learn about the newest technologies available. See what all the buzz is about at the Cattle Industry Annual Convention and NCBA Trade Show in Tampa, Florida, February 6th through the 9th. For more information, visit beefusa.org.
Let's take a look at some of the photos we've received from around the country in this week's Legacy Photos. We'd love to see your pictures. Just log on to cattleman2cattleman.org. Well, that's it for this week's edition of NCBA's Cattleman to Cattleman. We'll see you right back here next week on RFD TV.